He was a martial arts monster who reached the peak with nothing but his fists, until his own disciple betrayed him. After dying, he wakes up in a world ruled by levels, stats, and system windows. But unlike everyone else, he refuses to obey the rules of the tower. No leveling, no skills, no following the system. And the worst part, the goddess controlling this world looks exactly like the woman who betrayed him. Can a man who rejects the system completely destroy the tower itself through pure strength alone? The story began in an era of great turmoil where strength decides everything. In this world of martial arts, there was someone who reached the pinnacle of martial mastery and conquered the world, and his name was Assura. A few seconds later, the warrior, sitting on a horse, approached and, turning his attention to Assura, noticed that he was still as mad as ever. He came here to sacrifice his life? Even he couldn't stop an army of 100,000 alone. What was his plan? Assura asked. 100,000? What difference did it make how many there were? The warrior was surprised. What? The protagonist replied that as long as he obsessed with numbers, he would never defeat him. The warrior spoke indignantly. His shamelessness knew no bounds. Then he gave the order to kill him. Numerous warriors behind him rushed forward straight at the protagonist. Although he came alone, unarmed, his power was capable of destroying everything. The next second, he concentrated energy in his fist, then delivered a powerful blow. The attacking warriors scattered in all directions, and Assura advanced. It was an incredible pressure. Such a powerful blow left a huge mark on the ground. Before its might, even the mightiest rulers who had dominated the era fell one after another. And finally, under the name of the Kingdom of Assura, he managed to unite the Celestial Empire. Sometime later, in the capital of the Kingdom of Assura, Muwal, the protagonist stood in one of the caves and the people gathered behind him knelt and began to congratulate him. Wal, lowering her gaze, said, having defeated so many enemies and finally united the Middle Lands, he no longer has anything to fear in this land. He turned, looked at her, and ordered her to get to the point. Why had she summoned him to such a place? She looked up at him and added, as he knows, Lord, he is the only ruler to have united the Middle Lands through sheer force of arms. The title of greatest martial king befits him. But now even the title of God of War will not be enough. She rose to her feet and, directing a stream of energy behind her, added, so, to present a combat manuscript worthy of this glory, she invited him here today. The only one who can withstand the power of this manuscript is him, Assura. At that moment, a huge goblet appeared behind her, chains flying from its sides and a red liquid concentrated in swirling rings above. MC extended his hand toward it and uttered, combat manuscript. The red liquid enveloped his hand, and then a few drops fell into the goblet. The next second, several magical chains shot forward from the liquid, beginning to bind the protagonist's limbs, and he looked on in bewilderment. The next second, Wal declared that his tyranny had come to an end. From today on, the kingdom of Assura would belong to her. Resistance was futile. No matter how much power he had, he wouldn't be able to use it before this Muganchan. The protagonist frowned, then added that in that case he should accept. Before she could finish, the main character clenched his fists and asked, Wal, had she forgotten who he was? Before her stood fate and doom itself. The next second, the chains shattered from his body, and his energy spread around him. Wal then turned to her subordinates and shouted, why are they standing there? They must activate the Mugancheon barrier quickly. At that moment, the protagonist was already behind her, aiming his fist at her, but suddenly a red liquid began to concentrate around him. He stood in the center of the magical symbol, while cords of red substance bound his body. He screamed, what is this? And then a stream of red liquid scattered around him. After that, Wal approached the magical symbol, remaining in the liquid, and looked at her reflection. After that, her subordinates knelt and shouted that they congratulated her, mistress. They welcomed the new ruler of the kingdom of Assura, and thus the life of Assura, the supreme king who once conquered the world, came to an end. After a while, a system window appeared, stating that he had been summoned as a player. Does he wish to participate? The system asked, player, please. He must press the accept button quickly. But the next second, the protagonist shattered the system window into many fragments. A few seconds later, Kim Yuta opened his eyes and wondered in surprise. What just happened? He put his hand to his head and thought, something incredible, an ominous aura. Then Nova, flying next to him, cried out in alarm, Yuta, be careful. At that moment, a huge dragon's clawed paw rushed straight at him, but he thrust his sword to his side, blocking the attack. He stepped back, sighing loudly, and then the monster began concentrating energy in its mouth. The system announced that the monster was summoning an infernal breath, with a preparation time of 2 seconds. MC looked at this in surprise, and then a powerful beam of energy erupted from the mouth of a huge dragon. The system reported, Inferno Breath, an area attack with fire magic, damage 3000 to 6000. The Ascender's Guide is analyzing this skill. Analysis rate 85%. Analysis complete. The Ascender's Guide automatically counters the skill. Fire resistance plus 150%. Remaining time, 1.5 minutes. At this moment, the player held his sword in front of him and delivered several slashing attacks. Then he pushed off the ground and, swinging his sword, used the sacred sword Asterion, Heavenly Punishment. The system reported 9 out of 10 uses remaining. Stripes from the powerful attack began to appear on the dragon's body, and then the system announced that the task was complete. The boss of floor 998, Inferno Balrog, has been defeated. The final task is to reach the top of the tower and complete the conquest. After this, Yuta sighed with relief and said that disaster had almost happened. Nova flew up to him and asked, "What's wrong?" She flew up from the other side and added, "Is something wrong?" Only the top of the tower remained. She suggested they quickly get past this and return to their families, and he smiled, looking at her, and noticed that she was right. That's how it should be. For 3 years, since they were summoned to this world, they had been moving forward, thinking only about conquering the tower, although now only the top remained. Why did he feel uneasy? What awaited them on the other side? At that moment, Nova looked at the player with interest and called out to him. He remained silent in response, then placed his hand on the huge gates and thought that he should pull himself together. What was he thinking when he finally reached this point? After that, he opened the doors, and Nova asked if everything was all right. He answered affirmatively and said that they should go. He thought about whatever awaited them in the final stage. There were no monsters here superior to his stats. He would return to his world at any cost. But at that moment, the creature that appeared before his eyes was there. The next second, Asura appeared from a stream of smoke. He looked thoughtfully at the players and, folding his arms, asked, "Who are they?" Yuta wondered, "What is this? Some old man? Could he really be the final boss?" Then Asura looked around and, frowning, asked, "What is this place anyway? Maya Wool, where did she imprison him?" And then Yuta thought in surprise, "He's talking? So this is a monster with some level of intelligence. No, he shouldn't let his guard down because of its appearance. Whatever it looked like, it was the final boss of the tower, so he would finish it off once and for all." With these thoughts in mind, he grabbed his weapon and charged. He swung his sword, but Asura easily dodged his blow and looked at him in surprise. After that, the player added several more slashes. He stood up and swung his sword, shouting, "It's over!" He used the sacred sword Asterion, and the system reported that there were 8 uses of heavenly punishment remaining. After that, Yuta looked at him thoughtfully and noticed that he was weaker than he thought. At that moment, Asura, holding the blade of his sword, asked, "Hey kid, what's he up to?" And Yuta, perplexed, looked at him thinking, "It can't be." He parried his ultimate attack with one hand. So this is what the final boss is like? Then he stepped back, drawing his sword, and the system reported, "The Ascendant's Guide is analyzing the target's weakness. Analysis rate 78%. Analysis complete." The Ascendant's Guide automatically targets the opponent's weak point. At that moment, Yuta pointed his sword at Asura's neck, and the system reported a success rate of approximately 87.86%. But the next second, Asura stopped his sword with one hand and said, "Enough." The system began reporting an error. The Ascendant's Guide's success rate is plummeting. Yuta looked ahead in surprise and thought, the success rate has dropped below 1%? He'd never faced an opponent like this before. "This old man, who is he?" Then Asura said, "Hey, kid, he shouldn't be afraid. He won't cross fists with those not worth fighting." Yuta pointed his sword at him and was surprised. "What? What do you mean? He's not worth fighting?" And the protagonist folded his arms and said that with his current strength, even punching him would be a waste of time. He should be allowed to ask what the true nature of this place was. Yuta asked, "So that's what it was?" He thought he now understood why neither heavenly punishment nor the Ascendant's Guide worked. This place was supposed to test his true strength. Then he slung his sword over his shoulder and, laughing, said, "That's why his attacks weren't working. He hadn't known there was a hidden trick here. He needed to prove his true worth. This was a mechanism where he could only deal damage after completing a task. Then he would prove his resolve." With these words, he prepared to attack, and the system announced the activation of the Chosen Hero feature. All stats were increased to maximum for a set period. He shouted that they would see what he had to say about this. He charged and shouted, "The absolute maximum the stat system can give." At that moment, a system window appeared, confirming the increase in his stats. Asura looked at it in surprise and asked, "Strength and agility 999? The maximum." Then he became indignant. He dared measure his strength with such pathetic numbers. He clenched his fist, concentrated his energy into it, and added, "A world where people measure strength by looking at blue windows and numbers is disgusting beyond belief." Now he doesn't care what this place is. First, he will reshape his thinking. At that moment, Yuta screamed loudly, swinging his arm to strike, but the protagonist aimed his fist at his system window and said that first, he would deal with this disgusting blue window. He used the Asura High King School. From such a powerful blow, the system window shattered into pieces, and Yuta was thrown far back. He screamed loudly and the system began reporting an error. It also suffered serious damage. Yuta thought, "No, what the hell? This can't be." A stream of powerful energy erupted from the tower floor, and Yuta thought this was some kind of nonsense. The system reported that all saved stat data was being erased. System restore failed, system shutting down. Then the protagonist asked, "Does he understand now? True strength can't be measured by someone's sum. This pesky numbers game ends here, kid." At that moment, Yuta was level 1. He said he was wrong. 3 years ago, he was summoned to a mysterious tower. He climbed it with his comrades, but he was the only one who survived. Then he sat near the bars and, calling Nova, asked if they really conquered this tower. "Do you think they'll be able to return to their world?" The more he thinks about it, the stranger it becomes. They don't even know what dangers await them ahead, and they're simply told to climb when there are no guarantees. Isn't it natural to refuse? And Nova thoughtfully noted that he was right. Even if they climbed to the very top, returning to their world might be impossible. But the goddess Yeshua said that everything in this tower has a purpose. She is sure that his journey will also have meaning. In the present, Yuta propped himself up on his elbows, looked at the protagonist, and said, "Stats, inventory, quest window." He thought, this can't be happening. Had the stats windows really disappeared? He screamed in fear. System reboot. He thought, this just can't be happening. Then MC came closer and said, what a pity. He still can't escape this crazy numbers game. Those disgusting blue windows would never appear before him again. Yuta smiled awkwardly, his body trembling with fear, and he began to beg for mercy. In response, the protagonist said that he had already said that he had no interest in killing those unworthy of battle. He sat down opposite him and told him to first tell him what this place was, and what he needed to do to return to his real world. Yuta thought in surprise, the real world, so this man was a player too? Then he said that he didn't know how to return either. Only if you beat the final stage, there's no other way. The protagonist was surprised. Beat the final stage? What kind of nonsense is he talking about? And Yuta looked at him and thought, who is this guy? Did he just come here straight from the Middle Ages? Then he said, I'll explain it more simply. In short, he punched his hand and added that you just need to destroy this whole tower. MC asked, destroy the whole tower? And Yuta smiled and, getting to his feet, said, exactly. First and foremost, you need to destroy the whole tower, all the way to the very top, without leaving a single floor. So, if he's also a player, Grandpa, he should start with the quests. Then the protagonist said, how simple. In that case, he'll destroy this damn tower right now. With these words, he smiled, looking at his hand, and Yuta screamed in fear. What? He fell to the ground and screamed, no, Grandpa, destroy the tower, not literally. But at that moment, the protagonist had already used King Asura's attack, a smashing attack. A powerful wave from the impact began to fall downwards, destroying floor after floor. Yuta flew down and screamed, hey, he has to wait. Why the hell is he destroying the tower? The system started reporting an error. The tower was destroyed by an anomalous entity. Yuta screamed in fear as he fell and thought, this guy, who the hell is he? Destroying a tower with his bare hands, how is that even possible? At that moment, Nova flew up to him, and he was surprised to see her. Then she grabbed him by the hood, holding him suspended, and he asked, where was she? He already thought he would never see her again. In response, she apologized and explained that she was late because she went to get his sword, but he could forget it now. She suggested they just get out of here. Something terrible is about to happen. Yuta wondered, what terrible thing? What could be worse than this situation? But at that moment, he turned around and noticed a system window reporting an error and an abnormal connection detected. A huge black hole appeared behind him, and the system reported that all data from the destroyed tower was being deleted. The remains of the tower began to be sucked into the black hole, and Yuta thought, what now? The tower debris is being sucked in? He doesn't know what kind of hole this is, but if it sucks them in, they're done for. Really done for. The system reported, warning, not enough space in the recycle bin. Data that hasn't been deleted will be discarded. The next second, the protagonist emerged from the black hole, folded his arms, sighed, and said, I think he stepped on something. Maybe he imagined it? By the way, why is nothing happening? He completely destroyed the tower, just like that kid said. Then he turned around, and Yuta shouted, he has to listen, Grandpa. That's not how you should have destroyed the tower. He doesn't care how strong he is. He's going to keep destroying everything in his path. Does he even have any idea what could happen? He then ran forward, but stopped abruptly, and a powerful stream of energy erupted from the black hole in front of him, rushing upward. Then they heard a voice. She thought the receiver had finally appeared, and this was just an uninvited guest. At that moment, Yeshua appeared in front of the protagonist, and he looked at her and asked if she was Maya Wall, and she put her hand to her face and asked, is it him, the insolent idiot who destroyed her tower? In anger, the protagonist clenched his teeth and screamed, so that's where she was hiding, Maya Wall. He charged and screamed, how dare she do this to him? Then she waved her hand, and the powerful energy pinned the protagonist to the ground. Yuta screamed in fear, Grandpa. And Yeshua asked if he couldn't hear her. She was asking him if he was the one who destroyed the tower, and Yuta thought, impossible. She neutralized that old monster in the blink of an eye. Could this girl really be the goddess Yeshua that Nova was talking about? Then the protagonist dug his fingers into the ground and, rising, said, I see. She's clearly not the Maya Wall he knew. She didn't use that strange power. However, judging by her words, she created that damn tower and that disgusting numbers game. Wasn't that her doing? Good. It's exactly as she says. That damn tower and that disgusting numbers game. So quickly, she must return him to his kingdom. But in response, Yeshua laughed and shouted that he really was funny. Returning home by breaking the tower? Who told him that nonsense? Okay, tower or system windows. He can break them as much as he wants. If he really destroys everything she created, so be it. She will send him back to his world. But he shouldn't think it would be easy. The next second, she concentrated energy on her fingertip, and then player dummy images appeared around her, and the system reported that some data was being restored from the trash. Player dummy images were being created. Yuta asked fearfully, what's this? More and more players were appearing, and he said, so many. Then Yeshua smiled madly and said, because now there will be even more towers in this world for him to destroy. The next second, Yuta concentrated energy in his sword and leaped to attack, pointing the sword straight at Yeshua. But a barrier appeared in front of her face, stopping his blow, and she asked, "What's this piece of trash?" A few seconds earlier, one of the rebellious players had said, "They must conquer the tower, Yuta. They must conquer the tower together." And Yeshua had said, "No matter how powerful he is, the balance of this world is not so simple." Before she could finish speaking, Yuta pointed his weapon at her and, mad with rage, screamed, "Is she kidding me?" He thought all his comrades were dead. These people were with him, risking their lives to climb the tower. There's no purpose in this hellhole, and she still dares treat them like this? Is this why they were dragged into this tower? But then Yeshua waved her hand, throwing Yuta far back. She asked, "Isn't it obvious? They were all just details necessary to complete this perfect world. The world she created was still unstable, so she needed their power. That's why she forced them to climb the tower, through fictional missions called tasks." Yuta screamed, "For this, how dare she?" She pointed her hand at him and said that she had nothing more to say to him. Since he had no power left, she no longer needed him, dear player. With these words, she concentrated energy in her hand, and Yuta, with tears in his eyes, clenched his teeth and screamed. Damn it, he thought it was all his fault. He said that he shouldn't have climbed that damn tower in the first place. He thought that if he had been even a little stronger or a little smarter, he could have defeated this woman. But the next second, Yeshua's hand separated from her body, and the protagonist rushed forward, leaving a powerful mark on the ground from his blow. Yeshua turned sharply and thought, "What?" And the protagonist stopped next to Yuta and said that he underestimated him. A puppy. How dare he touch his prey before him? Yuta looked up at him and said, "Old man," and he said that his courage was worthy of respect, but he was still far from mature. "The ones who will blow off her head." With these words, he appeared next to Yeshua and delivered a powerful blow straight to her head. He added that it would be him. He held Yeshua by the neck, and she looked at him and said, "Unbelievable." And he achieved this power without the system. However, she won't let him do whatever he wants. With these words, she placed her hand on the protagonist's torso. He cried out in surprise, "What is this? Her nasty tricks again." She reached for his face and asked that they conquer every tower in this world. She will be waiting for them at the highest point of this world. Then she dissolved into the clots of energy that spread around. The protagonist said that no matter how much he thought, their resemblance was simply striking. Then he asked, "Why did she send him here, Mayawal?" Meanwhile, the player dummies rushed to attack, and Yuta held his sword in front of him and shouted, "Chun Young-hoon, Choi Yun-seo." Do they recognize him? It's him, Yuta. And Nova, hanging in the air next to him, noticed that it was useless. Even if they recognized him, it would just be a residual reaction from their memories. He wanted to object, but the protagonist easily dealt with the attacking risen player and asked, "What is he doing, brat?" Yuta was surprised. "An old man?" He said he didn't have time to fight these small fry. He had to quickly take him to those damn towers. He was surprised. No, he had to wait. These people, they were his comrades. If they left this here, before he could finish speaking, the MC became indignant. Comrades? Do they even look like that? They were nothing more than the vengeful souls of the dead. Dwelling on them wouldn't change anything. If he was so attached to them, he could live out the rest of his life playing with these low-level ghosts. He went off to find this woman. At that moment, several risen players jumped at him from behind, but he spun around and swung his leg, attacking several of the attackers at once. He exclaimed, "Damn pests! How dare they block his path? He's in a hurry, so he'll take them all out with one blow." With that, he clenched his fist, then looked at his hand in surprise and asked, "What is this?" He couldn't feel any internal energy in his body. Had she really sealed his dantian? He then smiled and, placing his hand on his forehead, added, "How interesting." She decided to test him. No matter what she did, it wouldn't stop him. Even without martial arts, he was still the strongest. With that, he dealt with a few more player dummy units and, aiming for the next group, shouted, "Isn't it time for him to stretch for the first time in a long time?" He delivered a powerful punch, sending the player dummy units flying in all directions. Yuta, his mouth open in surprise, thought, "I knew it. This guy is a monster, fighting so many dummy units alone." But despite the old man's fighting prowess, the player dummy units regenerate. If the battle doesn't end here, he'll eventually just get tired. He has to help him. With these words, he took a stance and concentrated energy into his weapon. Nova flew up to him and shouted that he should calm down. Without stats, his body can't withstand the holy sword. He could die, and he replied that he knew, but if he didn't, at that moment, one of the dummies extended his hand forward and said, "Yuta, together to the tower. They must conquer this. Yuta." But he plunged his sword into the dummy's head and, frowning, said that he couldn't avenge his fallen comrades. So he simply had to find this woman who did this to him and his friends. Meanwhile, he headed to the next group of player dummies and shouted, "Hey, old man. He doesn't need to dodge. He can withstand hits, right? He should just aggro these people onto himself." And the main character struck one of the dummies and wondered, "Aggro? What is he talking about? This brat." The next second, he dealt a few more blows and shouted that he shouldn't give him orders. And Yuta thought, great. All the dummies gathered around the old man. He pushed off the ground and jumped up, thinking this was his chance. He focused on the faces of some of his opponents. Tears began to flow down his face. He clenched his teeth and thought, "He's apologizing. Guys, I will definitely take their revenge, no matter what." With these words, he used the sacred sword Asterion, heavenly punishment. A powerful flash of energy spread around, and a few seconds later, the protagonist folded his arms across his chest and grinned, saying, "Incredible, this impudent brat." He looked at Yuta, who had dropped to one knee, and asked, "It turns out he's quite useful, huh?" He, trying to catch his breath, replied, "Old man, he must remember one thing. The one who kills this woman will not be him, but him." With these words, he pointed his weapon at the protagonist, then fell limply into his arms. MC laughed and screamed, "This little brat, who only knows how to eat dust, dares to give him an order a second time? Good. He made him laugh, so he'll reward him. If he ever becomes stronger than him, he'll give him a chance to kill her. He'll be looking forward to it." Meanwhile, a man with a deer skull in place of his head rose to the edge of the cliff. Dark energy concentrated in the creature's eye sockets. After a while, the protagonist sat in a meditative pose under the flow of a waterfall. The next second, he suddenly opened his eyes and punched his fist in front of him, directing the energy forward. He said as he thought, not a trace of his internal energy remained. He looked at his fist, and smiling, asked, "Did she really seal his dantian? What impudence." Since things had come to this, there was perhaps no other way out. Then he approached the sleeping player, and kicking him, shouted, "How long are you gonna lie there?" The powerful blow sent Yuta flying into the wall. He crouched down and, grabbing his weapon, shouted, "You senseless block." He decided to show his true colors, huh? Well, one more time, but for real this time. And the protagonist said, it seemed he still hadn't come to his senses. Did he really want to die that much? He didn't have time to fool around with him. He needed to smash those damn towers to dust as soon as possible. So he had to get up. In response, Yuta smiled and asked, "What? Why on earth would he go destroy a tower with him, old man? Instead of destroying it, he should start looking for that woman." In response, he shouted, "You damn idiot. He still hasn't understood anything? It's obvious she's hiding in one of those towers, because in this goddamn world there's nothing but them. If he destroys every tower, sooner or later he'll find and finish this game." Yuta muttered, "Okay?" He thought this guy was completely crazy. Then Nova leaned towards his ear and whispered, "Yuta? Frankly, she thinks this man is too dangerous. He managed to destroy his stat window in an instant. If they stick close to him, who knows what kind of disaster will happen." Before she could finish, MC turned around and asked, "Hey, little brats, what are they whispering about?" Nova screamed in fear, and he folded his arms and said that he wasn't going with them because he liked them. It's just that this kid's swordsmanship looks useful. Besides, don't they also want to catch that woman? However, their physical strength won't be enough to deal with her. From now on, he will make them stronger. Sometime later, near one of the towers, the protagonist took a few steps forward and said, "Finally here. Is that one of the towers she built?" He turned around slightly and added, "By the way, she's grown quite a bit in the last few days. With her current body, she might even be of use to him." At that moment, Nova appeared from a cloud of smoke and, taking a stance, thanked him. He added that she certainly had talent. If they had more time, he would teach her how to control internal energy. And she demonstrated the muscles of her arm and said, "No, what's he saying? It's all thanks to him, teacher." She laughed lightly, and the protagonist added, "But this little brat, when the hell is he going to come? To leave a simple servant behind? What a pathetic sight." At that moment, Yuta approached them with the last of his strength and said that they should wait a second. He thought they were crazy. How was he supposed to run with that log? What kind of boot camp was this? And why had Nova changed so much? She's become a completely different person. He can't even take a step anymore. Then he dropped to all fours and tried to catch his breath, and the protagonist, frowning, looked at him and said, "Pathetic little thing." He still managed to catch up. In any case, this tower looks strange. This will be even more disgusting than the last one. Then Nova asked, "Teacher, are they entering yet?" But she didn't see anything resembling an entrance. He smiled and said that there was no need for that if she was his student. After all, right here and now, he would completely destroy this damn tower. She screamed joyfully, as expected of a teacher. He must destroy it with one hit. And Yuta was surprised. What? No. He should wait a minute. He suggested they come up with a plan first, but the next second, MC had already delivered a powerful blow with his fist, and the system reported a critical error. The protagonist's hand was covered in energy, and the system reported a forced move inside the tower. They began to be sucked in, and they screamed loudly. Yuta stretched out his hand and shouted, "Crazy old man. He told you he should have thought first." After some time, they found themselves on the streets of a ruined city. Yuta fell to the ground with a loud cry, and the protagonist folded his arms across his chest and asked what those disgusting structures were. Yuta looked up and asked, "Where are they? This is the city, isn't it? Has he really returned to his real world?" Then Nova, frightened, told him to look there. He looked to the side and thought, those are the bodies of the players. Why are there so many of them? He doesn't know how this happened, but this clearly isn't his world. Then, where the hell are they? They heard a voice. It must be responding to his call. The next second, energy began to erupt from the players' bodies. Yuta wondered if the souls of the dead were gathering in one place. Then a player rose into the air and said, "I wonder if these are the recently summoned players?" He immediately warned them not to even try to resist. No matter how much they struggled, only he, the king of ghosts, would reach the top of this tower. The next second, a huge skeleton appeared in front of him, thrusting its bony hand forward. Yuta thought in surprise, "A skeleton? No, this thing is on another level." Then he shouted, "Old man, this is dangerous. He must quickly get out of the way." But the MC grinned and, clenching his fist, shouted, "And you call this lowly creature dangerous?" He thrust his fist forward, releasing powerful energy that scattered around. Then he turned around and, smiling, said, "Pathetic trash. He claims to be at the top at such a level? What impudence and stupidity. He is nothing but a coward hiding behind his monsters." Li Changwu looked at him and asked, "Is he hiding behind monsters?" At that moment, several more creatures appeared behind him, and he added, "What funny things is he saying?" He changed his mind. He must fight to the very end. He wants to test him and see how long he can last. Then the creatures moved to attack, and the protagonist asked, "Test him?" He thrust his right hand forward and added, "How dare a worthless creature like him test his king?" With these words, he waved his hand, sending one of the creatures flying into the wall behind him, causing it to crack. Another creature followed, releasing magical chains that bound the protagonist's limbs. He looked at this in surprise, as a huge monster leaped at him from behind. But at that moment, several slashing attacks swept across the monster's body, and the protagonist said it felt ticklish. Then, the system reported the summoning of bone soldiers, as well as an abyssal horde. More undead began to appear from the magical symbols that appeared around them, and MC released energy, causing the monsters to scatter in all directions. One of the creatures was heading towards him from behind, but he punched it, and then the system reported the summoning of a bound ghost. He asked, "What is this?" Changwu appeared behind the protagonist and said that he didn't understand. He had neither stats nor skills, so where did such power come from? Then he pulled out his daggers and, frowning, said that he didn't need to answer. He would still absorb his soul. He used authority, the mark of death. He rushed forward, and at that moment, Nova and Yuta blocked the powerful streams of energy. Then Yuta looked ahead and thought, what kind of insane power was this? In a one-on-one fight? He was on equal terms with that old man. Who even was he? And Nova shouted that he should run. Yuta, he doesn't look like a player. She doesn't know why, but she sensed the same energy from this man as from the goddess Yeshua. After some time, Changwu asked, "So this is the last soul? A troublesome guy, but now he has fulfilled his part of the contract with Yeshua." He extended his hand forward, concentrating his energy, and added, "Unknown player." He used soul absorption and said that he would put his soul to good use. But the next second, the protagonist rushed forward, slaying several more creatures. He asked, did he say a goddess? Could he really be referring to the cursed woman who sealed his dantian? What luck, he was looking for just that. If he didn't want to die, he had to tell him. Changwu replied, "That's right, the latter couldn't be weak." However, he was mistaken about something. The one who would die in this tower wouldn't be him. With these words, he conjured several daggers around his body and aimed them straight at the protagonist, but he grinned, caught one of the daggers with his fingers, and then sent it back. At the last second, the player dodged, but several strands of his hair were cut off. Then he chuckled and remarked that he truly was strange. Well, there was no point in denying his strength anymore. He must prepare himself, for he would meet him like one. With these words, he used the authority of the armor of the god of death, Hades. The armor appeared on his hand, and the next second, he charged. He crossed his arms in front of him, then swung his weapon, shouting that they would see how he handled this. But MC leaned back, dodging his blow, and asked, "Is that all, boy?" He responded by shouting that he wasn't done yet. He kicked off the ground and flipped in the air, and the protagonist noticed that he was right. It wasn't over yet. He would show him the difference in their strength. He put his hand out in front of him, blocking the attack. A powerful energy exploded, and then Changwu jumped back, breathing heavily, and said that he really was strong. Well, he would tell him something. He said he was looking for the goddess Yeshua, right? She was the one who gave him this tower. However, he hadn't yet gained full control over it, so he made a pact with the goddess Yeshua. He must give her 10,000 player souls to be reborn as the tower's true heir. And now, at last, he had all the souls. With these words, he directed his energy at Nova. Yuta called out to her in alarm and thought, "Damn it, when did he manage it?" He shouted, "You bastard. What did he do to Nova?" He swung his weapon, but Changwu replied that he shouldn't interfere. A mere trifle. The next second, a monster appeared next to him and plunged its hand straight into his torso. And Changwu added, "Resistance is useless. He can't do anything." And then the system announced the quest, the heir's ritual. He had received the last 10,000th soul. All the tower's abilities will be unlocked soon. 1 minute and 4 seconds left until unlocking. And then the protagonist approached him and said, "I see. So he's a necromancer, controlling evil spirits." There were also those in his kingdom who used such base techniques. Oh, those vile idiots from the demonic cult. He didn't expect to see their techniques here. He then concentrated the energy in his hand and added that normally he would never use such dirty tricks. But he had crossed the line. Therefore, he would show him the proper execution of the technique. He must witness the power of true necromancy. He concentrated the energy even more, and souls began to fly toward him. And Changwu thought in surprise, the souls he had collected were transferring to him? This couldn't be happening. The system didn't allow for that. Then the souls of Nova and Yuta appeared before the protagonist. He told them to have fun, boys. Now they could beat up this idiot. The next second, Changwu looked at his hands in surprise and shouted, "What happened? Did he die?" Then he turned his gaze to the protagonist and shouted, "He did all this, right? He has to give him back his body right now." He frowned and looked at him, asking, "Are you seriously blaming him for this? If it weren't for him, he would have remained a body. It wasn't because of him that their souls left their bodies. It was all his fault. That idiot used his spiritual art to turn their souls into puppets. so he used his own power to intercept his technique. Basically, he separated their souls from their flesh to allow them to heal. So stop whining, they should just follow him. He managed to steal enough souls from him that he's no longer a danger. Then Yuta thought, even if it was the work of spiritual power, he doesn't feel like anything has changed within him. The protagonist then added, now they must show him the true power of profound arts. In response, Changwu stepped forward and asked, he thinks that if he steals a couple of souls, he can defeat him? He shouldn't be talking nonsense. He doesn't know how he managed to steal them, but the souls he captured were just a drop in the ocean. The true power of profound arts, he says? He shouldn't make him laugh. He only has 2 people behind him. The protagonist chuckled. Only 2? He still measures power with such measly numbers. At that moment, Yuta swung his weapon and destroyed one of the summoned creatures with a single swing. Changwu wondered in surprise, where did such power come from? Where did this sudden surge of energy come from? Just a moment ago, he was on the verge of death. Several creatures headed toward Nova, and Yuta frowned and loudly calling her, wondered if she hadn't yet regained consciousness. The next second, a powerful stream of energy pierced the monster's head. Nova, with her hand pointing forward, looked at this in surprise and asked, what? Yuta asked, is she okay? It seemed she really had become stronger thanks to these profound arts, but if they continued like this, it would never end. He looked at the crowd of undead heading towards them, and then Changwu looked at the system window. The protagonist told him to listen carefully. If they wanted to end this, they needed to break that nasty window. However, his Dantian was currently sealed, so he couldn't use Chi Blast. Breaking it wouldn't be easy. Yuta asked, but there's a way out, right? Even if it was sealed, he could still use profound arts. MC clenched his fist and noticed that it was true. Even if he couldn't use his internal chi, drawing from outside was a piece of cake for him. The main thing was that there was enough energy around. Then he could manifest power equal to Chi Blast. He then looked at Nova and said, it's nothing. She must give him her soul. She asked in response, excuse me? After a while, the system reported a warning. He hadn't collected enough souls. He must collect more souls to complete the quest. Changwu looked at this and said indignantly, he has to waste them again, and all because of these damn parasites. Well, he could always collect more. The main thing now was to deal with these scoundrels. He pointed his hand forward and added, his souls. They must answer his call and sweep away all enemies in their path. Then the protagonist said, hey little one, he must remember, he only has one chance. He must trust him and put all his strength into this strike. He must pave the way for them to reach him. And Yuta, concentrating energy in his weapon, told him not to worry. He certainly didn't trust him, old man, but for Nova and himself, he would definitely open this path. With a loud cry, he rushed forward and used the sacred sword Asterion, the heavenly blade, horizontal slash. And Changwu, looking at this, said, what fools, wasting all their strength on destroying cannon fodder. He smirked and said it was useless. It wasn't enough to deal with his entire army. The next second, MC appeared in front of him and said, just as he thought, he was a common coward. He noticed that every time one of the damn spirits died, he took out that blue window to check the score. His boring spiritual arts were over. It was all over. The next second, he used the king's style, the Assura fist. A powerful energy erupted from his fist, smashing Changwu's system window to pieces. He thought, this can't be happening. Impossible. Everything he had painstakingly built was destroyed in an instant. This can't be happening. His status window and power, his world. The system reported an error. The data of the souls registered in the system was corrupted. All of this will be deleted without a trace. The succession ritual quest failed. A few seconds later, Yuta, with a loud sigh, rose to his feet and holding his body was surprised. What? He returned to his body? He opened his eyes in surprise and thought, the old man was right. It was completely healed. He just can't stop wondering, who the hell is this old man? Does he even have a limit? Then Changwu grabbed his head and screamed madly. No, this is wrong. Please, he begs. It can't end like this. This is all because of them. Idiots. Now he has lost the only way to save the world he lived in from destruction. They took everything from him. A little earlier, Changwu was walking down the street listening to music on his headphones. At some point, he felt something unusual. He moved the earphone away from his ear and then noticed several black holes appearing in the sky. His face turned pale with horror. And sometime later, the city was already destroyed. Many bodies lay on the streets, and Changwu was sitting near a hole in the ground, trying to catch his breath. His face was covered in tears, and the next second, Yeshua appeared before him. She directed the system window to him. In the present, the protagonist walked forward and asked, what was he talking about? Was his world destroyed? Yuta asked. Wasn't he the same player as them, summoned from another world? Then why? Changwu put his hand to his head and with tears in his eyes said that when he first became a player, his world was on the brink of destruction due to a wave of monsters. He wanted to save it at any cost, thinking that with this power he could do it. This goal led him to the top of this tower, and there he learned the truth. Whoever conquers the tower will have the opportunity to create a new world. Yuta said in surprise, the opportunity to create a new world? Changwu looked at his hand and answered, yes. He wanted to use this to recreate the world he lived in before, inside this tower. He just wanted to save everyone. And now, when he had the chance to do so, they took that opportunity away from him. He clenched his fist and started screaming. If only he hadn't intervened. If only. The protagonist replied, with such pathetic excuses, the task would have already been completed. Coward. He thinks a pathetic weakling like him can save the world? Then why did he run away when it was collapsing? He never even thought about saving everyone. He only wanted the chance to recreate his world. He thinks that can be achieved by playing with disgusting numbers, trying to recreate the world with such empty force. Whatever he does in this tower will be useless. Since he's mired in grief and forgotten about reality, he should let him say one thing. In an attempt to escape his pathetic reality, he decided to play the hero. In response, he told him to shut up. He ran forward and swung his fist, but MC dodged it and punched him in the cheek, sending him flying into the wall. He thought, no, that's not it. He really wanted to save everyone. Not long before, Yeshua stood next to him and said, "Dear player, he's finally cleared all the tower's levels. Now if he wishes, he can return to the moment before his world's destruction to face the wave of monsters and save everyone. Or, he can accept a special quest to inherit the tower's powers and recreate his world. So what will he choose? Will he return to his world, face the wave of monsters, and become a hero in an endless war? Or will he create the world he desires within this tower and become its savior?" Then he replied that he would inherit the tower's power and save his own world. In the present, the system began reporting the tower's destruction, deleting all data. Yuta glanced away sharply and asked, "What else? Is the tower really falling apart?" Then, he looked at the protagonist and asked, "Old man, what should they do? If they stay here, they'll perish along with the tower." Then Changwu said, "Yeshua once told him that all the towers in this world will eventually lead to the same path." He didn't know what exactly her words meant, but perhaps if they reached the end of this path, they would finally find the goddess Yeshua herself. If he wanted her, he had to find this path. Yuta asked what he meant by a single path, and why was he even telling them this? Then Changwu crouched down and said he now understood what the muscular man had meant. He had been a coward, indulging himself in playing the hero to escape reality. However, that wouldn't change anything. In the end, he had already given up on returning to his world. In this world of nothing but emptiness, he had no reason to live. The exit had to be right behind him. If he hesitated, he too would disappear. He had to get out of here before the tower collapsed. Was he going to stay here? Then the protagonist walked forward and said, "I understand." Even though he was a coward, he still had some dignity left. He could do as he saw fit. When he found that woman and killed her, he could consider that his fate would be taken care of as well. He walked forward and Yuta called out to him in surprise, shouting, "Is he really just going to leave him here? He could go with them and help them find Yeshua." In response, he told him to shut up, "You ignorant brat." He turned slightly and added, "That man died in a life and death struggle. He already allowed him to choose the place of his death instead of simply killing him. What is that, if not mercy?" With these words, he headed towards the gap that had appeared in space, and Yuta was surprised. "What?" He turned around and said, "But," and Nova shouted, "There's no time. Hurry, just a little more and the tower will collapse." He gritted his teeth and replied that he knew, but he was human too. With these words, he ran up to the player and threw him onto his back. He said that he couldn't leave him here. He called out to him in surprise, and Changwu asked what he was doing. He had nothing left, no strength, no purpose, nothing. Even if he left this tower, he no longer had a reason to live. Yuta looked at him and shouted, "Even if he doesn't have a reason now, he will definitely find one in time, so he shouldn't just throw away his life." Changwu remained silent in response, and then asked what his name was. He replied, "Damn it, is he seriously asking him that now? Kim Yuta, you idiot. Is he satisfied?" Changwu said his name and noticed that it was strange. He was surprised. What? He wanted to fight. "And what's his name, smartass?" He replied, "Changwu." Yuta said that wasn't a very impressive name either. Then Changwu said he had one last request. He handed him a glowing object and said, "Please use this power wisely." He cried out in surprise, "What is this?" He had to take it away from him. Who said he wanted that? He replied that he wouldn't be able to leave the system without this power anyway. He wouldn't be able to maintain his body. He began to fade away and added that he absolutely must return to his world. Yuta held the object in his hand and tried to call out to the player, but the system issued a warning. The tower will completely collapse in 1 second. All data is being deleted. Tower number 312 was completely destroyed. Meanwhile, Yeshua, looking through the window that appeared in front of the system, smiled and said, "He's destroyed one tower. He needs to push harder." A player with no stats. The system window reported that all the data inside the tower was deleted. Yuta said it really disappeared. He wonders, couldn't he have saved him from the start? Would the stat window have shattered anyway? He thought if this were destroyed, the player's physical body would disappear along with him. In that case, he should have died. So why is he still alive? Does the system's power still remain within him? MC asked, "Why is he so quiet, man? He's looked serious for a while now. Is it because of that guy?" He chuckled and said, "Well, it turns out he's a good guy." Yuta asked, "So what? Will he nag him again?" He just has a bad taste in his mouth because of that guy. He was definitely a villain, but he can't shake the feeling of pity. He also gave him this. He told him to use it for good and return to his world. He doesn't know what kind of power this is, but for now, he'll give it to him, man. This seems like the best solution for now. Asura looked at the artifact and said thoughtfully, he could feel that cursed woman's chi from this thing. Perhaps with this power he could unlock his dantian. Yuta asked, really? Then he'd regain all his power. MC ordered him not to get ahead of himself. This would only restore a tiny portion. The energy in this object was indeed like that woman's, but it was nowhere near the powerful chi with which she had sealed his dantian. Yuta spoke up, wanting to ask, what is this anyway? He was already insanely strong, regardless of some dantian. Asura replied, he only uses external arts now. In other words, it's pure, unbridled physical strength. Yuta asked, so he's been fighting with physical strength all this time? Nova said, he's definitely a monster. Asura said, and if he restores his dantian, he'll be able to use internal arts. They require the power of chi flowing through the body to manifest power beyond external arts. Yuta asked again, internal arts? Is it some kind of magic skill or something? He thought, if you look at it that way, this old man was so strong even without a stat window. Power capable of destroying an entire tower. If he had stats, how high would they be? Nova asked Yuta, what was he thinking about? He replied, he was just thinking about what his strength would look like if it were transferred into stats. MC punched him in the head and asked, is he still holding on to those windows and numbers? Yuta turned around and said, what keen hearing he has. Then, what is this power he always talks about? Asura replied, what nonsense. True strength is the result of blood, sweat, and tears shed during training and effort. He clenched his fist and ordered everyone to listen carefully. To achieve such power, he dealt 1,000 blows daily. However, if someone else did the same, does that make him weaker? No. No matter how many punches he throws, it all depends on the feelings he puts into it. He clenched his fist and said, in other words, it's about giving everything he has to achieve what he wants, and the rest he'll gain along the way. He directed his punch forward, breaking a path in the forest. Yuta and Nova's eyes widened in surprise and froze. Asura asked, did he understand? In any case, the real problem is how to use this power. Yuta cried out, what a nightmare. I don't understand anything. Maya Wall, what the hell is she thinking? After a while, Asura asked, is he seeing this for the first time too? Yuta asked again, what? Yes, because of someone. His stats were destroyed before he could pass the tower. Asura replied, I understand. He turned around and asked, I wonder if that guy knows about this? Yuta looked at him in surprise and MC asked, is he also after this power? Let him show himself. A monster appeared in front of them and Yuta screamed, what is this anyway? Is this the monster from the tower? But there is no evil aura coming from it. Who is he? The monster swung his axe and Asura laughed loudly. He screamed, okay, they'll get straight to the point. Let him attack. The monster rushed to attack and swung his sword and Asura prepared for it. He hit the opponent who said, axe style. He hit the ground and used earth crushing. Drops of blood appeared on the ground when MC held the axe with his hand. He said, he has a very strong stance. The monster looked at him and Asura said, however, he rushed to attack and said, this is not enough to challenge the king. He hit the monster with his fist and slammed it into the ground. MC turned around and said, he'll have to try harder. The monster said, he will not forgive him. Never forgive. Yuta screamed in fear. This man. The girl in the robe frowned and asked why they all destroyed her tower. Yuta apologized. They really did destroy the tower, but he won't say it was theirs. The girl irritatedly ordered him not to play dumb. She saw with her own eyes how they destroyed the tower. What is their goal? Why are they doing this? If it weren't for those idiots, she wouldn't have been wandering around this deserted world for 2 whole years. If it weren't for them, she would have been in her world a long time ago. MC hit her on the head with his hand and said, this loser talks too much. Yuta looked at him fearfully and asked for forgiveness. After a while, Kalina apologized. She almost hurt him by mistake. Really, let him forgive her. Yuta laughed lightly and said, it's okay. Anyone would misunderstand in such a situation. Please, let her get up. And yet, it's simply incredible to reach the top of a tower with such stats. Kalina, can you look at her stats window again? She replied, yes, right now. Kalina opened the system window and said, here. The system window reported that Kalina was at level 86. Her stats were equal to 1 point. Yuta thought, he still can't believe it. How did she get to the top with such stats? She just leveled up and didn't touch her stats at all. How is that possible? Is she a monster too? Like that old man? Yuta said, so she's saying there was nothing at the top of the tower? Kalina replied, yes, not even normal monsters were visible. Instead, insufficient stats. With that message, the tower began to disappear. Yuta said, an error occurred because there weren't enough stats. As he thought, it must be Yeshua's doing. Kalina asked again, Yeshua? Yuta said, it's the creature that gave them these stats windows and summoned them here. They're looking for her to find out how to get back home. Kalina said, by the way, what's he doing there? MC was sitting off to the side, releasing mana. Yuta replied, he had no idea. The artifact began to rise into the air and glow, when suddenly a huge explosion occurred. Yuta asked, what was that? Chains were embedded in MC's body, and Yuta thought the recovery effects, shining from just one dantian. He grabbed his head and thought, his head. He imagined the attack on the castle. A creature with tentacles towered over the city, and Yeshua screamed in fear. No. Yuta wondered what memories these were. A familiar face. Asura looked around and said, his internal energy has finally begun to flow, but it's still not enough. He needs more power to break the seal on the dantian itself. So she's saying he should use this power to break the seal she placed on him? Interesting. He thinks he's finally found a way to get his power back. As long as he uses this energy, he will gradually restore his dantian. He turned around and told him to hurry. It's time for them to head to the next tower, young one. Yuta approached him and said, old man, not every tower has the power of a successor, right? There might be some where there's no one left. A voice rang out. No, she knows the way. Yuta turned around and asked, Nova? What happened to her appearance? She replied, she doesn't know how it happened, but now she feels where the forces that make up this world are directed. She released mana forward and asked to be their guide to their next destination, where the successor is. After a while, Graydon walked through the castle and said, Bloody Windfields, farmland designed by the Demon King himself, collects a monthly tax on the harvest for maintenance, and the Dark Mine plans to deliver 1 gold bar every month on schedule. The ruler thought for a moment and laughed, saying, excellent. At this rate, they'll soon reach 1 million. Graydon, he's been working a lot lately, so let him go and rest. Graydon said, however, something strange had happened. Belzar asked, what do you mean? Graydon replied, when a soldier patrolled the eastern wall, he discovered a mysterious group there. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but based on his own guess about their identity, it seems a new group of heroes has appeared in the Demon Kingdom. Belzar asked, is that so? These idiots still haven't come to their senses. Well, never mind. Let them come, he said. Whoever they are, he wouldn't let them set foot in his castle. The system window reported, player Collins stats confirmed. System code accepted. Transfer to tower number 8. The group moved and Yuta asked in surprise, so you can enter the tower anyway? He admits, having statistics in this world makes life a lot easier. Asura said, pathetic brat, is he still dependent on that blue window? They don't have time for idle chatter. He needs to restore his dantian as soon as possible. So brat, where is that so-called heir? Nova pointed her finger towards the castle and said, the heir's power comes from there. At that moment, the man screamed. He failed the Demon King again. Hero Evan. How much longer must he wait until he finally defeats the Demon King? Evan replied, they were very close, but at the very last moment, his equipment suddenly broke. Does he understand? If he could buy him better equipment, he definitely would have succeeded. The man asked again. Equipment? Just a few months ago they gave him the best they had, didn't they? Evan laughed and replied, that's true, but those weapons weren't his style. Does he understand? He imagined the image of a girl and asked, and while we're on the subject, how about recruiting new holy maidens? He feels like his holy power has weakened a lot lately. The man said irritably, how shameless. Evan James. He is no longer the hero of their kingdom. He is banishing him from this kingdom forever. Evan looked at the swords pointed at him and laughed. He said, what is he saying? He said it was different this time. He has a secret weapon ready. The man screamed. He thinks he doesn't know how he used the treasury to live in luxury under the pretext of hunting the Demon King. If he doesn't leave on foot, he will order his execution on the spot. Evan raised his hand and asked, isn't this too much? He has done so much for this kingdom. At that moment, the wall into the hall was broken, and the knights cried out in surprise. What the hell? What is happening? It can't be. MC stopped in front of them, and the knights screamed. Are they being attacked by the Demon King's army? Sir, it's him. Asura released his mana and cried out, if they don't want to die, give him their power immediately. The knight asked, does he even know where he is to cause such chaos? Let them detain this man immediately. Desecrating the royal palace is punishable by death on the spot. Asura struck the guards and sent them flying, and Evan looked at him in surprise. The knights asked, what was that? Did 2 royal guards just fly away from one blow? Who is this guy? Evan grinned and shouted, as he sees it, Your Majesty, these are the very secret weapons you spoke of. And these aren't just any incredibly strong men. Each of them will be stronger than an ordinary S-rank mercenary. With these men by his side, he will surely defeat the Demon King Belzar. Asura asked with displeasure. What? After a while, Evan hit the wall, and MC asked with displeasure, what kind of cheap show was that? Evan apologized. Are they newbies or heirs? Yuta replied, well, they. Evan hugged him and said, oh well, it's fine. It's not that important. As far as he understood, they came for the heir's power, right? Then they're in the right place. He offered to go with him to kill the Demon King. Asura ordered him to stop talking nonsense. He'll just rip that power out, right from his body. Evan asked, is that it? Then let him try. If he's confident that he can extract the heir's power without destroying this. Asura asked, what? Evan asked. He didn't know. If he tries to take another heir's power, this will be destroyed. But if he goes on the quest to exterminate the Demon King with him, he'll hand over his power to him fairly. Yuta looked at him carefully, and Asura said, enough, he's not going to cooperate with him. Yuta said, sir, let him wait a second. It might be true. He didn't steal Li Chenwu's power. He gave it to him willingly. Evans shook his hand and said, he's reasonable, right? He didn't even introduce himself. It's nice to meet you. His name is Evan. Yuta introduced himself in return and said, but how does he know that you can't take the heir's power by force? Evan interrupted him and said, one way or another. What about the others? He looked at MC and asked, did they come to an agreement? Kalina replied that she didn't really trust him, but it seemed they had no choice. What did he think? Asura frowned and said that if he tried to cheat, he would break his neck on the spot. Evan laughed and said, fine. Well, since they had all come to an agreement, he offered to equip them first. After a while, Yuta asked, so this is the demon realm where their king lives? It's much more spacious here than he imagined. Evan cried out, great, it's time to go kill the demon king. Asura took off his armor, and Evan asked, puzzled, what he was doing. Asura replied, these rags will only get in the way. Evan replied, oh well, they were expensive though. He didn't need it either? Kalina replied, no, she liked it. MC said, stop wasting time. Where's the demon king? Evan replied, in worlds like this where there are heroes, you usually need to at least reach the demon king's castle. At that moment, missiles were fired in their direction and Yuta asked, what are those? Are those missiles? They screamed. Stop! Starting with that, that's pure fraud. At that moment Belzar said, stupid hero. He never learned anything. This time, he'll finish him off once and for all. His greatest masterpiece, the anti-hero hybrid, the latest fully armed absolute stronghold, the demon king's castle. He'll crush him to dust, Evan. He selected targets on the system window and fired missiles. Yuta asked, what the hell are those? Are those missiles? He asked them to wait. Starting with that, that's pure fraud. Evan released his mana and rushed forward. He held up a block in front of everyone, repelling the missile attack. The system window reported, a universal warehouse of another world. Evan turned around and asked, is everyone safe? Yuta thought, this is incredible. He blocked all the missiles with one blow. This guy, he's a little annoying, but so this is what the true air is like? Evan clicked his tongue and said, this Belzar, did he decide to go all out from the start again? Evan asked to listen. Every area here in the demon realm is a dungeon designed by the demon king. Lava, rocks, trees that they see, any of them can become a weapon of this type. They can't let their guard down. They never know when and where the next attack will come from. At that moment, they began to be attacked again. Belzar cried out. He brought his comrades with him again. The hero Evan. Does he really think he'll let him march unhindered to his castle? Evan cried out in displeasure. The demon king Belzar. How long does he plan to hide? If he calls himself the demon king, let him come out and fight them face to face. No matter how he dodges and hides, he will never be stopped. Belzar laughed and said, since he is so determined, let it be his way. In that case, he will resist his will with all his might. Yuta looked at him in surprise and thought, is this the status window? Wait, so this demon king is also a player like them? Belzar cried out, well then, heroes. Let them enjoy the show, a brand new dungeon of the demon realm, which he designed especially for them. Blocks appeared around them, and the system windows reported, loading new map data. A new dungeon has been added to the demon realm. The targets will be moved to the new dungeon. After a while, Yuta ran down the corridor and yelled loudly. He screamed, why are there so many traps here? He accidentally touched a brick, when suddenly something jumped out from it. No matter how many traps he hid, it was too much. Kalina swung her axe and chopped through the rocks. She asked, is he okay? Yuta cried out joyfully. Kalina, is she okay? She asked, where's everyone else? And what is this place anyway? Yuta replied, he thinks it's a dungeon the demon king created himself. Kalina asked again, a dungeon? Yuta replied, yes, she doesn't know what it is. This is common in games. Dungeons usually have a confusing, labyrinthine layout, with monsters and traps randomly placed everywhere. Kalina replied, I see. Everything is like he said. This place really is like a confusing labyrinth. No matter how many different paths they try, they still return to the same place. How then are they supposed to get out of this dungeon? Yuta replied, first they need to find the master and Evan. If anyone can break into this place, it's him. At that moment, MC slammed his fist against the wall, which surprised Evan. He screamed, no sir, please, don't destroy everything in the way. It'll make it even harder to find the exit. Asura turned around and ordered him not to dare order him around. Stupid, loud-mouthed brat. He'll find his own way. Evan looked after him and said, fine, let him do whatever he wants. He could break down every wall here. He'd still end up back where he started. And yet, Belzar really had prepared himself this time. He looked at the compass and said, even with this tracker, he can't find the way at all. Could this really be another failure? He sat down on the floor and said, they can't even get close to the Demon King's castle, let alone defeat him. At this rate, he'll never be able to return to the kingdom. Nova asked Evan, why didn't he say anything about there being another heir besides him in this tower? Evan looked at her questioningly and said he didn't know what she was talking about. Nova told him not to play dumb. The Demon King, Belzar, was clearly a player just like him. She sensed the same air power in him. Evan said, she's funny. Yes, there are two heirs in this tower. When he received this power, there was another player standing with him on the top floor. Nova asked in surprise, by another player, he means Belzar? Evan answered, yes. They thought they had passed the tower together, but apparently the goddess Yeshua thought otherwise. Because of this, the heir's power was divided in two, and they found themselves on opposite sides. One in the human world on the surface, and the other in the demon realm, where monsters live. Nova said, that's when he said he would give them his heir power. Evan interrupted her and said he wasn't lying. The incomplete power can't be extracted anyway, and more importantly, he has no interest in becoming the heir to this tower. The only thing he wants is the complete destruction of the Demon King, Belzar. Nova's eyes widened in surprise, and Evan laughed and said that he was babbling about useless things. There was no need to take it personally. Anyway, they need to get back to looking for a way out of this dungeon. At that moment, Asura broke the wall and came out to them, and Evan said, "He sees, he never listens." He said it himself. They always end up back where they started. If they want to get out of this dungeon, they first need to figure out their location. MC interrupted him and said, "Stop talking. Let him just follow him. The loudmouth. He's already found the exit." Evan looked at him in surprise and asked, "What?" At that moment, Graydon said, "So the hero got out of the labyrinth. Looks like he'll have to deal with it himself." Yuta said thoughtfully, as he thought, they were back at that statue again. It seemed like this dungeon sent them back to the beginning if they chose the wrong path. Then how were they supposed to get out of here? It felt like they had tried every possible route. No matter how many marks they left on the walls, they disappeared when they returned, so it was useless. Kalina interrupted him and said, "Yuta, doesn't he think there's something wrong with the statue? Was it always this small?" Yuta cried out. She was right. It really did seem to have gotten smaller, and the shape was somehow strange. His eyes widened, and he stopped. He thought, "This is a dungeon." "Really?" Yuta said. He thought he understood. "Miss Kalina." She looked at him carefully, and Yuta asked her to trust him just once. He suggested trying to go back where they came from. Kalina asked, puzzled, what was he even talking about? Go back where they came from. What's the point of retracing your steps? Yuta laughed and said, "He's asking you not to be so strict. Isn't it better to do something than continue wandering aimlessly?" Kalina replied. Okay, she understood. In a situation like this, they should do everything possible to get out. After a while, Kalina asked, "Yoda, what's going on here?" She looked around and asked, "Instead of going out, they're back in this place again." Yuta smiled happily and thought, he knew it. Everything happened as he thought. He replied, "No, it's not like that. It seems like it's the same place, but they've actually moved one step forward. Miss Kalina, let her look over there." Kalina turned around and cried out in surprise, "That's it! Are the torches lit?" Yuta replied, "Until they're all lit, they'll continue searching for anomalies in this dungeon." Kalina asked, "What?" She asked him to wait and explain everything properly. "What exactly does he mean by anomalies?" Yuta replied, "To put it simply, it's something that has changed in the dungeon compared to its usual appearance. For example, traps that weren't there before might suddenly appear, or the dungeon's structure might change strangely somewhere." All of this was one single anomaly. The rules are very simple. If there are no anomalies, they move forward. If they detect an anomaly, they immediately turn back. And until all those torches are lit, they just need to repeat this. Kalina asked again, "Really?" She doesn't quite understand what he's talking about, but does that mean they'll be able to get out? Yuta laughed and said, "Yes, please, let her not worry. He's played this kind of game a lot, so let her trust him and follow him." After a while, a passage appeared in front of them and Yuta shouted joyfully. The path was finally open. Kalina said, she can't believe it. How was he able to solve this puzzle? Yuta replied, "He told you so. Such games were easy for him. He had to try every new game. It was his style. When he first saw the statue shrink, he immediately understood the trick." Kalina smiled and said, "Anyway, thanks to him, they made it, Yuta." He suggested they quickly go down and find the rest of their companions. After a while, they descended the circular staircase, and Yuta said, "This is the place." Kalina asked, "Where are they now? Where could the Lord and Evan be?" Suddenly, Graydon appeared behind Yuta, and Kalina fearfully told him to be careful. She thrust her axe forward, and Graydon approached her and said, "They've come this far, the hero's companions. To get out of this labyrinth created by the Lord Demon King himself, they must have considerable talent. However, as long as he's alive." Yuta began swinging his sword, and Graydon turned around and said, "They'll never reach the Lord Demon King." Yuta was attacked and thought, movements. He can't keep up with him. Kalina swung her weapon and tried to attack Graydon, but he deftly dodged. He drew his sword and began to quickly strike. Kalina swung her axe, but Graydon moved behind her. She sensed his presence and turned around abruptly. She thought, when did he? Graydon quickly swung his sword and began to move from side to side. Cuts appeared on Kalina's body, and she thought, damn, he's attacking from all sides. To catch this idiot, is there really no other choice but to use that method? Graydon stopped and said, "She is strong, but her attacks are too slow. With that heavy weapon, she will never defeat him." He didn't have time to finish when his glasses burst. Kalina asked, "Are they really slow?" The system window reported, summoning registered equipment. She took out a machine gun and told him to try to dodge this. Yuta's eyes widened in surprise, wondering if Kalina's weapon had instantly changed. He got it. She uses the inventory window to switch weapons mid-battle. But even with a different type, defeating this boss isn't that easy. Kalina began rapidly firing her weapon at Graydon, but he quickly dodged. Kalina pulled out a grenade and threw it in his direction. He cut it and widened his eyes in surprise. He thought it was a smoke bomb? Had she really been using that to block his vision from the start? Kalina drew her sword from its sheath, and the system window announced, summoning registered equipment, changing equipment to a quarterstaff. She tried to strike Graydon, but he quickly blocked the attack. He looked at the quarterstaff, then was knocked back. Yuta thought in surprise, that's impossible. How many weapons does she cycle through in one fight? Compared to her skill and combat abilities, the stats of a first level seem insignificant. Graydon laughed and said he'd never seen such a player before. Not only did she switch weapons mid-battle, but she handled different types with ease. He released dark mana and said, however, these are just pathetic tricks. He hasn't even used 10% of the ancient demonic power sealed in this blade. Once he unleashes true power, her little tricks will be nothing more. At that moment, Assura appeared in the hall and fell on him. He looked questioningly at Graydon lying on the floor and asked, Who is this, anyway? After a while, Yuta asked, what? He broke through the floor to get here. He can't believe they escaped the dungeon with such a stupid method. But that's so like the old man. Evan laughed and said he didn't believe him either when he heard that idea. He suddenly started smashing walls and then said he found a way. He thought the old man was just strong, but he turned out to be more capable than he thought. Assura looked at him disapprovingly and said, enough chatter. By the way, who is this guy? What does he have to do with the Demon King? Evan replied, that's Graydon, the Demon King's butler, Belzar. He's effectively the second in command in the demon world. Every time they try to raid this place, he appears as the boss of the dungeons Belzar creates to stop him and his companions on their way to the castle. Especially when he enters the second phase, the difficulty becomes simply monstrous. Unraveling his schemes with standard strategies is nearly impossible, so they're very lucky that old monster crushed him and knocked him out right before the second phase was supposed to start. Even though he didn't enter it, the two of them held their own well against Graydon. They're actually pretty skilled, aren't they? Yuta replied, not exactly. It was all Kalina. He was just watching from behind. So the dungeon is completely cleared now, right? Since they defeated the boss, they need to quickly find the exit. If the dungeon is cleared, a door should appear somewhere nearby. Kalina asked, the exit? He means that one? Yuta looked to the side, and she said, the door that was closed just a moment ago is now open. Yuta said, exactly. Then they need to go through the exit. Evan suggested keeping this momentum going and they'll take down the Demon King. Asura frowned and said, he, a terrible hero. How much longer does he have to repeat this nonsense? That idiot, the Demon King? When will they finally see him? Evan told him to relax. They were almost there. Let him endure a little longer. If they passed the next stage, they would probably see the real Demon King. So they need to hold on a little longer. Yuta replied, okay. But, Evan, how does he know they will meet him after the next stage? Wasn't he stuck on the Graydon stage? Evan asked. Isn't it obvious? Usually after the intermediate boss there is a break before the final one. He slapped his palm on Yuta's back and said, maybe you can't tell by looking at him, but he is quite the gamer. It's elementary. Well, then, shall we head out? Just in case there are any traps left, he will look around and follow them. They guys should go first. Yuta looked at him carefully and said, he understand. Then they will head to the next floor first. It might be dangerous there, so let him catch up quickly, Evan. Evan watched them go, then smirked and said, well, it's time to finish this. He walked up to Graydon and used otherworldly warehouse storage. He moved Graydon and said, is this the 70th idiot's been doing this for? Belzar, he needs to try harder. Sometime later, in the Demon King's castle on the first floor, Nova asked if they were really inside the Demon King's castle. Yuta said they got here much faster than he expected. If they could even infiltrate the castle, they would defeat the Demon King in no time. Besides, no matter how strong he was, does he really have a chance against this old man monster? One blow from him would be enough to destroy the Demon King. Evan said he really is incredibly strong. But don't relax, Yuta. It may look like an ordinary castle, but it's actually a huge dungeon created by Belzar himself. Yuta asked if this place is one big dungeon. If that's the case, it's strange that there haven't been any monsters yet. Do they really need to search for anomalies again like in the last dungeon? At that moment, a silhouette appeared in front of them, and Yuta grabbed the hilt of his sword and shouted, what? What is this? Is this a monster summoned by the Demon King? No wait, it's not a monster. It looks more like dummy data. At that moment, loud laughter and shouts rang out. So they made it here, heroes. So his loyal subject Graydon wasn't enough to stop them? Belzar said, well, this time it won't be so simple. He's already finished collecting their data. Let them listen, heroes. A tall creature appeared in front of them, and Belzar shouted. He recreated their strongest points to create the greatest masterpiece. Yuta looked at the monster in surprise and asked, what? MC frowned and asked, who the hell is he? How dare he wear his face? Yuta thought, what's going on here? Where did two old man monsters come from? Is it really possible to do something like this with just data replication? Asura stepped forward and mockingly said, how funny. A doll is trying to imitate the king. He put his hand on the monster's shoulder and asked, but does he really think he can keep up with him? Such a pathetic doll is no match for the king's fist. The monster punched him in the face, causing Asura to fly to the side. Yuta's eyes widened in fear, and MC said, no, his punch can't be that weak. He swung his fist and shouted, if he's going to imitate him, he'd better do it properly. He tried to punch him, but the monster deftly dodged and clenched his fist. He tried to punch Asura, but he quickly blocked it. The monster rushed to attack again, and MC tried to defend himself. Yuta thought, this is impossible. He's really keeping up with this old man monster? Maybe it's just his imagination, but it seems like the real old man is being slowly pushed back. Suddenly, Kalina drew her weapon and fired at the monster. It turned around and used otherworldly warehouse. The bullet hit it, surprising Kalina. The monster pulled the bullet out of the warehouse and it flew towards her. Asura ordered the monster not to look away, the insolent idiot. He swung his fists, and the system window announced, summoning an item from inventory. Warhammer equipment. The monster clenched it and used Six Paths Crusher. It began swinging it, and Yuta asked fearfully, old man? Belzar laughed and said, now that's what he understands. Top-notch performance, right? He said he combined their strongest abilities. Even if the four of them teamed up, they'd hardly be able to win, so let them not waste their strength and get out of the demonic realm. Evan spat and said, this Belzar, he sure does like to talk. He didn't expect even his ability to be copied. Apparently, he hadn't been sitting idly by all this time. Evan ordered the old man to come to his senses. He's not dead yet, is he hopeful? As the Demon King said, they can only win if they work together. Asura said, how interesting, he said. He actually dares to imitate this body's martial arts. He stood up and said, he doesn't know what trick he's using to imitate it, but it's quite an intriguing talent. In that case, the King of Fists, Assura style. He ordered them to try copying this technique as well. MC released mana forward and used Annihilation. He charged at the monster and deflected its arm. The creature created the holy sword Asterion, summoning. Yuda's eyes widened in surprise and he thought, what? Wait, that's his skill, right? The monster struck with the holy sword Asterion, and MC clenched his fist and used heavenly punishment. He began to quickly attack and said, as he thought, it is incredibly weak. The internal energy in his Dantian is still too little to manifest a perfect surge. Well, for a simple doll, this should be enough. The monster stepped forward and the system window reported, error, critical damage detected, final defense system activated, forced maximum mode. Bright mana illuminated the hall, and Yuda's eyes widened in surprise and thought, final defense system? Is it really entering the second phase? Asura looked at the monster and said, what a persistent doll. Does it want to fight one last time before death? The monster covered itself in mana and rushed into battle. The system window reported, summon item from inventory, equipment, battle axe. Axe style, Earth Crusher. It leaped into the air and swung it, and MC clenched his fist and used destruction. The monster's body shattered into pieces and the system window reported, warning. More than 50% of the data was corrupted. Error. Data recovery impossible. Asura grabbed the monster by the head and slammed it to the floor, and the system window reported, error, error. The defense system has been neutralized due to a serious error. The system is being completely destroyed. MC said, enough of this imitation. Let it go away, you piece of trash. After some time, Belzar sat in the castle and looked at the system window. It reported an error. A critical error has occurred. The dungeon boss summoned by the player disappears. Belzar frowned in displeasure and asked, what the hell? What kind of crazy technique is this? He not only broke the dungeon structure, but also disabled the defense system. He chuckled and said, as expected, it won't be easy. Where did he even find such a monster? But he prepared more than just this to stop him, Evan. This time he will destroy his plans with his own hands. At that moment, Evan said, they have finally made it. Here it is, the entrance to the final stage where the Demon King awaits them. Can they see? What did he say? He said they'd get there in no time if they just kept moving forward. He smiled and said, of course, without the old man who killed all the monsters with one blow, it wouldn't have happened so quickly. Without him, it would have been hard to even get to this place. The doors opened and he asked, so are they going in? He suggested working together and defeating the Demon King. Wait, what's wrong with that guy? Where did he suddenly disappear to? Evan entered the hall and looked around, asking if the Demon King had really abandoned his own castle and run away. The system window reported, warning, an unauthorized intruder has been detected inside the Demon King's castle. Intruder extermination protocol has been activated. Poison gas is being sprayed in all sectors. Yuda's eyes widened in surprise, and he thought, is it poison gas? Of all the possible things, the Demon King uses poison gas? Belzar came out to them wearing a gas mask and said, judging by their faces, it's quite effective. What does his new Venom X taste like? From the moment they inhaled that poisonous gas, their fate was sealed. The system window reported that the concentration of the poisonous gas was increasing. Dangerous. The toxicity level inside the castle had risen to 72%. Evan screamed, oh my god. Guys, make them hold their breath. If they inhale that gas, it's all over. Belzar held out his hand with the potion and said, he's giving them these anti-poison potions directly. Before he could finish speaking, Asura rushed forward and smashed it. Belzar laughed and said, he's definitely a monster. Can he still move normally after inhaling that poisonous gas? Or is he just pretending to be fine? He took out a device and said, in that case, how about this? He shot the vaccine into MC's arm. Asura looked at the syringe and asked, this? Belzar said, he definitely couldn't stand that. This is much stronger than the previous poison. His arm should rot and his organs should leak out. Asura swung his fist and smashed the gas mask on the demon's face, throwing it aside. He clenched his fist and said, how stupid. For him, all this is nothing. The physical form of this body has already reached a state of absolute immunity to poisons. The system window reported, connection with the controlling entity has been lost. A critical error has occurred in the intruder extermination protocol. The protocol has been forcibly disabled. The poisonous gas is dissipating. Yuda drank the potion and cried out, thank you, Evan. He saved them. Amazing. This Demon King was a real psycho. Spray poison gas right after they appeared. If it weren't for him, Evan, he and Kalina would already be dead. Evan laughed and replied, oh, come on. It's nothing. He just shared the antidotes with them. It's good that he grabbed a lot of essentials, just in case. Kalina said she was too relaxed. She should have taken the antidote with her too. He saved them. Evan, thank him very much. Evan said no need. Why shouldn't she thank that old man over there? All of this was possible, thanks to him. He laughed and said, he knew he was strong, but he never thought it would all be over so quickly. Yuda said, this is some kind of speed run. Asura frowned and asked, hasn't he forgotten about their deal, Chatterbox? He dealt with the Demon King, just like he wanted, and now let him give him this power. Evan smirked and replied, of course he hasn't forgotten. Who does he take him for? As soon as he presses the quest completion button, he will receive the heir's power, so don't worry. Well, it's time to put an end to this tedious quest. Yes? The system window reported, The concentration of poisonous gas is increasing. Complete the quest, yes or no? Evan winked and said he no longer believed that this day would ever come. Does he even realize how much effort he put into completing this quest? He had to find new companions every time since the Demon King kept changing the dungeon mechanics. And don't even get him started on the difficulty of the boss fight. Just remembering that Butler gives him PTSD. He almost grew old trying to take over that castle. Yuta asked, puzzled, Evan? He understands it was hard for him, but could he please press the end button already? Evan said, on the other hand, it wasn't all that bad. Everyone in the village considered him a hero. This title allowed him to take whatever he wanted from the royal treasury. Expensive equipment, money. He used his divine power as an excuse to hang out with beautiful saints. It was so much fun. If he ended the quest now, all those luxuries would disappear. And wouldn't that be a waste? He suggested doing it this way instead. Since ending the quest was so sad, he suggested starting over from the beginning. The system window reported that the heir refused to complete the quest. The quest Ritual of Inheritance enters the third hidden route. All tower data, except for the heir, will be reset. Remaining time, 1 minute. Yuta asked for forgiveness? What is he even talking about? After all this, he wants to start over? But why? Evan said he felt sorry for them, guys, but he loved living in this tower too much to just let it collapse. So if possible, he would like to live like this for the rest of his life. However, it is practically impossible. If the quest is not completed in time, victory will automatically be counted for the Demon King. So he found a way to intentionally cause a bug in the quest. He can constantly reset the tower. Their data will also soon disappear. He laughed and thanked them for everything. They guys made his job so much easier. Even after the tower resets, he will not forget their hard work. A huge cube appeared above him and quickly fell. He jumped back and turned around to see Belzar. He said he told him what he wants will never happen. The system window reported that the details of the quest Inheritance Ritual have been changed. The tower can no longer be reset. Belzar said that the bug he had been abusing for so long, he fixed.